Hi there, this is Unmesh from PiXimperfect, and today I'm going to take you through the complete process of editing a wildlife photo right from scratch, right from editing it in Camera Raw, making those color and exposure adjustments, and then we will get it into Photoshop, separate the background, blur it out, add bokeh effects, and maybe do a little bit of dodging and burning and make it more interesting by adding some filters and all that crazy stuff. It's going to be one hell of a ride. So without any further ado, let's get started. Before we begin, just so you know, this video is divided into sections. So if you want to go ahead and skip to any section that you like, you can use these timestamps. So here we are in Photoshop, and let's go ahead and import the photo. So I'm going to open up the Finder and I'm going to drag our photo and drop it into Photoshop. Now keep in mind that this is a raw photo, and that's why it opens up in Adobe Camera Raw. If that's not a raw photo, if it's a JPEG photo, it might not open up in Adobe Camera Raw. If you want to turn it on for JPEG, here's what you gotta do. First of all, let's cancel this for now. And you gotta go to the Preferences. Photoshop CC, Preferences. Now, if you are on Windows, it would be under Edit and then Preferences. On Mac, Photoshop CC and then Preferences. Now, inside of Preferences, you'll go to Camera Raw. Now, inside of Camera Raw, these are the two settings that you can see. All you need to do, click on the drop-down menu and select Automatically Open All Supported JPEGs and HEICs, hikes, I don't know how to pronounce it, but select that option. It says that all JPEGs will be opened with Camera Raw from now, and hit OK. Now if you open any JPEG, let's open up a JPEG, not a RAW. So I'm gonna go to my folder, I'm gonna go to Stock Photos. I have a JPEG, let's open that up inside of Photoshop, and it opens up in Adobe Camera Raw. So that's the way to do it. If you have a JPEG instead of a RAW, and if you want to open that up in Camera Raw, that's what to do. Alright, so let's open up our picture that we wanted to open. So I'm going to open up my Finder. There we go. And then I'll go to my folder. And there we go. Let's just open that up. Alright, now I already have made some adjustments, as you can see. So let me show you the before. So this is the before if I set it to default, right? And this is the after. So let's go over it and let's start it from scratch. But before we do, let's save this as a snapshot so that we don't lose the edit. Alright, so we will go here to snapshots and click on the new snapshot, and then you can name it whatever you like, edit 1. Alright, now we can reset it. Click on this grid and Camera Raw defaults. We have reset it. Alright, so let's adjust stuff. So hold the Shift key to adjust the white point and the black point automatically. Hold the Shift key, double click on the blacks, it sets it automatically. Hold the Shift key, double click on the whites, it sets it automatically. Isn't that cool? Now, what I usually do, I play with the white balance first, but I just wanted to show you that. Let's increase the white balance and make it a little more warmer. Something like that. That looks wonderful. And I think the tint is all right. Let's now play with the exposure. A little bit of exposure. Maybe you want to increase the shadows, maybe you want to decrease the shadows. I don't know, it's totally upon you. So I want a little bit of dimension, so I will decrease the shadow. And if you're wondering that these areas are losing details, don't worry about it. We will locally paint those areas with adjustment brushes and then increase the exposure there. Alright, so now let's plan the highlights. Let's set it to canvas. Fit it to screen, and to fit it to screen, whenever you zoomed in and you want to fit the image to screen, all you gotta do, you gotta press Command 0, Control 0 on Windows, right? Let's play with the highlights. Let's decrease the highlights. I don't think we need so much of a highlights here, but I'm gonna keep it somewhere around that, and it's okay. And next you can just try increasing the white, see what it does to your photo. Maybe this is okay. And then let's increase the clarity just a little bit, just like that. I'm doing a very quick job here. Maybe a little bit of dehaze. Okay, that's fine. Do you want to increase the vibrance? Now, what is vibrance? When you increase the vibrance, it amplifies the colors of the midtones, just the midtones. And saturation amplifies the color of each and every pixel. Alright, so vibrance looks much more natural than saturation. So let's increase it a bit. It looks okay, but the blue is oversaturated. Do not worry about that. We'll take care of it. Okay, let's increase it a bit and let's go to the curves first, tone curves. You can use the parametric curve where you just have the sliders, Or what I prefer to do, I prefer to use the point curve. So directly on the curve, just like that. Maybe I'll increase it just a bit, and from here, I'll decrease it. Just like that. Alright, now, no sharpening right now, we'll do it at the end. Let's go over HSL adjustments. Okay, this is the one that we were looking for. You think it's too blue? First of all, let's go to saturation and decrease the saturation of the blues. I think it's too much, so let's just go ahead and decrease it just a bit. Now, you can increase the aqua if you want to. Let's see what happens. I'll increase it. It looks good. What about the purples? All you gotta do, you gotta play with these things, see what works for you. For greens, let's increase the greens a bit. Just like that, and maybe increase the yellows just a little bit. Let's have a look at the orange. It's okay. You see this nice pattern? It looks wonderful, doesn't it? Now let's go to hue. You want to change the blues? Let's shift it to the left or right and see what happens. It does look a little better. Let's shift it a little to the right. It looks purple-ish. So let's take it a little bit to the left. Do the same with the aqua. Let's see what happens. Left looks good. The best way to figure out where to go is take it all the way to the right, see whether it looks good, or take it all the way to the left. Which one looks good? The medium one, the middle one, or the right one, or the left one? The one which looks better, you move in that direction. Now it's time for us to control the brightness of each color, and that can be done through luminance. Okay. Now, let's play with each slider and see what it does. First of all, let's play with the blue because that's the most prominent color here. So let's make the blue a little brighter. Let's make the aqua a little brighter. That looks wonderful. What about purple? Make it a little brighter. Magenta does nothing. What about greens? Make it a little darker. Because we want attention on the peacock, right? So the more contrast we have between the subject and the background, the better. So we can make greens a little darker. What about the yellows? Let's make it darker as well. This is fine. And this looks okay to me. At this point, what you might want to do, see these areas are super dark over there as well. So to get it back, we can use adjustment brushes. So let's choose one of these brushes. Let's reset the values right here, and we will simply increase the shadow all the way to the right, and we can adjust it later, doesn't matter. Increase the exposure as well, and then let's just increase the brush size and start painting over here. Now I know it's too much. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of that. Just paint right now. You might want to paint a little bit there as well. Okay. It looks great. Now, set the exposure to normal and shadow to normal and gradually increase the shadow to see which value would go best with this. Okay, and then maybe a little bit of exposure is okay. And a little bit of clarity. Okay, now let's have a look at the before and after. So this is the after, and let me show you the before. I will have to reset it. So Camera Raw default. So this is the before, and this is the after. Looks wonderful. When you're retouching it right from the start, you can press P to look at the before and after, but the thing is, we have already retouched it before and then retouched it again, so it doesn't make sense to look at the before and after with the before as the previously retouched photo. Of course, you can set the before to starting photo, but let's not get into that. Now, once you have done it, all you have to do, you have to click on Open Image. Now, it will open the image inside of Photoshop. Now, let's go ahead and blur the background. To be able to blur the background well, we need to have a great selection of the peacock. So let's make a copy of the background layer first, and this is just for safety purposes and to look at the before and after. Control or Command J. I usually do this all the time. Now, we can use whatever tool we want. In this example, we're going to use the Quick Selection tool. So this is the Quick Selection tool. Let's go ahead and select the bird. Alright, let's make the brush a little bigger and start selecting him. It is male. Alright, now let's zoom in quite a bit, make sure everything is nicely selected. The beak. You can try checking in the auto enhance, it helps sometimes. In the previous versions, if the auto enhance was unchecked, the selection would not be nice, but in the newest versions in CC 2018, even if it's unchecked, the selections are great. Alright, I think the selection is pretty good. It's not bad. Alright, now let's go forward and select the other areas. You see, at first the selection looks bad, but then the computer analyzes and does all that math, and see, now the selection is much more better and accurate. Paint on the areas that you want to get selected, and then you need to paint out the areas that you don't want to be selected. So in this case, every area that we are selecting are the areas that are getting selected. I know that sounds complex, but you get the idea, right? Just keep on painting, and if it selects something extra, just like this, let me just do some mistake for you. If it selects something extra, it's just processing, okay. Then what you gotta do, you gotta hold the Option key or the Alt key. It turns into minus and then subtract this area, just like that. If it does that, okay. If it doesn't do, well, you don't have to do it, right? Let's go back and start from there. Try not to paint outside the areas that you want to get selected. See, it's taking time. Let's check Auto Enhance off. It kind of slows down the process, but it gives you better results. But in this case, I guess we'll get better results anyway. Let's zoom in here. This area seems to be a little tricky. Okay, pretty good. See, it went overboard a little right there. We will hold the Alt key or the Option key and just paint on in here to subtract that. And it did a pretty good job. Now at this point, a couple of areas are remaining right here. So we'll paint over those areas. And it's a pretty good selection. Now, what we will do, well, we have a basic selection ready and we have to select some other areas like these areas. So we can just add these areas right there. And again, it does its own math and stuff. Let's select the rest of the blues. And you don't have to be super accurate here. Just keep on selecting it because we will be refining it later manually. Alright, now once the selection is like the one that you wanted, once the selection is good, let's go ahead and select these areas as well. Okay, it's pretty good. It's not bad. Okay. Alright. You can press Q. Now once you press Q, it takes you to quick mask mode. Red are the areas which are not selected. Colored are the areas which are selected. So now you can simply take a brush. The areas that you want to select, you can take white and just simply paint. Let's decrease the size. And you can simply paint on those areas which you want to select. And then thus you can refine the selection. Alright. So I took a brush. I will increase the flow. Alright, let's just maximize Photoshop, sorry about that. And let's just add a couple areas here. Let's make the brush a little bigger and I'll add these strings or lines or whatever they are. Okay, alright, they look good. You can make the brush a little smaller and add a couple of these here and there. Maybe add some of these there. You can take your time as much as you like, but I'm gonna do it really quickly. Can make it look good. I added some extras. So if you want to erase something, change the color to black. Press X to toggle between the foreground and the background color. And the background color was black, so now it's black. So press X again to get white back, and let's see which areas need some selection. This area is fine, that area is fine. This area needs some selection. Let's make the brush a little smaller. With white color, we'll simply paint over this area. Alright. Now you can simply use, I have selected the soft round pressure, opacity and flow, which means the harder I press on the tablet, the more intense the brush will be, which means the more opaque the brush paint will be. So you can choose this brush if you're using a tablet, but you can simply go with the soft round, doesn't really matter in this case. Here's the selection is fine, it's fine, it's fine here now. Here's a little bit of discrepancy, we can press X and get it look okay. That is okay right there. There's a little bit of discrepancy right there. So we can make the brush a little bigger and just paint in those areas just like that. Okay. Cool. Now let's zoom out, have a look at some other areas. Here, a little bit of fault. See, you can press X to select some extra areas, to change the color to white, and to be able to select the extra areas. Here, as you can see, it's totally gone wrong, so we have to do it manually. Now keep in mind you can also use the pen tool and all that kind of stuff, but this way is much more easier and quicker for me. Alright, now paint on the inside. You might have learned this in schools while you were studying art, that first do the outlines and then fill in on the inside. And there we go. It looks beautiful, doesn't it? Once you're satisfied with the selection, you can press Q again to get into standard mode with those marching ants. And then what you can do, you can simply click on the mask button. Click on it and you have the selection ready. Now let's turn this off and let's see what we have here. But we want the below areas as well. So we will get into the mask. We will select something called the gradient tool. Okay. And then we will select white to transparent. So white on the left hand side, transparent on the right hand side, not black. So this one is already in there because white was the foreground color. This is foreground to transparent. All right, hit OK. Now then we will add a simple transparency gradient right in there. So with the mask selected, not the layer, mask selected, white to transparent, let's drag it from down to up, just like this. Now it looks much better. I can turn this on for reference to see what you are blurring. Now let's have a look at this. Turn this off and let's have a look at how it looks. It looks pretty okay. Now all we have to do, we have to blur the background. So let's make a copy of the background. We don't want to hurt the original photo. Control or Command J, and you can just name it background blur. Now if you simply blur it, it's going to be problematic. Why? Because in the background, you have the peacock as well. So if you go to Filter, Blur, and then Gaussian Blur, see what happens. The peacock also blurs and the blue color leaks out. If I hit OK, this is extreme. If I hit OK, if I turn this on, see the blue edge around? We don't want that, right? So let's go back by pressing Control or Command Z and let's fit it to screen. Now, we have to remove the peacock. And how can we do that? We can do that very easily actually. So we can choose the lasso tool, doesn't matter what tool you choose, and make a selection around the peacock, or you can use the existing selection right here as well. So you can hold the Control or Command, click on it to make a selection around it. Now let's expand it. So go to Select, Modify, and Expand. We can choose somewhere around 20 pixels and hit OK, see what happens. This is a good expansion. I will expand it even more. Select, Modify, Expand. Maybe 5 pixels more. Okay. Now, as you can see, the below area has been selected as well. We didn't want that. So with the help of the lasso tool and the minus one, this is the subtract. As you can see, lasso tool with a minus. We will subtract this area out. The bottom, just like that. Just we have to make a selection of the peacock from the outside, just like that. Okay. So let's subtract this area out as well, and this area out. This is extra, and this area out as well. So now we have a selection just around the peacock, and to check it, you can press Q again to see which areas are selected. Press Q again to return back to the normal mode. Now simply go to Edit, Fill, make sure Content Aware is checked, Color Adaptation, Opacity 100, Normal. Hit OK. And it does its math again, the artificial intelligence and all that kind of stuff, and tries to fill it up, and it has filled it up. Let's turn it off and let's have a look. It has filled it up. I know it looks bad. It doesn't matter because anyway, we're gonna blur it out. Control or Command D to deselect that, to remove the marching ants. Now let's blur it. But before we do anything, I would suggest that you convert this into a smart object so that we can change the values of blur later. So simply go to Filter, Convert for Smart Filters. This converts this into a smart object. Okay, now let's turn this on, and with this turned on, we can do it. You can go to Filter, Blur Gallery, and let's choose, let's say, Tilt Shift. Now inside of Tilt Shift, let's understand how Tilt Shift works. First of all, let's increase the blur to some crazy number. Let's say Let's increase it. 191, that's fine. Hit enter. We're okay with this. Okay, let's see what happens. Let's choose a high number, like crazy number like 169. That is okay. All right, now let's have a look at what's happening here. So this is the line. You see this line? This is the line where the blur is 0. And this is the line where the blur is whatever value you choose, in this case 178. So it gradually increases from 0 to 178, and anything on top of it is 178. Similarly, this line is 0 and this line is 178. Now you're not seeing anything here because there's a layer on top of it. If I move it, you'll be able to see what I mean. Let's move it to the top. Okay, you see what I mean? All right, so 0 here, 178 here, and all 178 below it. So what do we have to do? We have to move it down right here. Okay, and from here gradually increase it to the top, just like that. And I don't think we need so much blur. We will need just a little bit, maybe just like that. That is fine for us. And once you're satisfied with the value, not 500, maybe something like this is okay. Now, if you want to add bokeh, here's what you have to do. At the bottom, you have noise, motion effects, and effects. So click on effects, and there is bokeh. Now, you can increase the light bokeh a little bit, just like that. Okay, it looks good. It looks good. Now, do you want color in bokeh? I don't want it. I usually keep it at 0. You don't want to mess with that. And then this is the main thing which brings the bokeh in. So let's take this to the left a bit, just like that, and take this one to the left as well. Now all you need to do, you need to play with these things to see which value works for you. For me, I guess I'll take it a little bit, just a little bit, and take this a little bit to the left. Now it looks interesting, but the bokeh is very small. How to make the bokeh big? Simple. Increase the blur. So we can increase the blur to some high number to make the bokeh look interesting. Let's go for 110, 106. That's fine for us. And now you can play with the values a little bit to see what works for you. That looks fine for me. It's a little bit bright here, but we can take care of that, no problem. Hit OK. Now this looks wonderful, doesn't it? So let's zoom in and have a look. This area is a little distracting to me. So I'll create a blank layer on top of it. And with the help of this tool, which is called the healing brush tool, make the brush a little bigger. And I'm going to sample an area just like this by holding the Option or Alt on Windows. Click to sample and make sure current and below is selected, and just simply paint on that area to fill it up. Okay. Simply, I don't like this area as well, so I'll take a sample from here and paint it right over there, just like that. It looks better. Maybe cover it up here as well. Maybe cover this up. Okay, looks wonderful. Fit it to screen, looks great. All right, so let's have a look at the before and after. So this is the after, and this is the before. This is the after. Looks so much more better. Now let's add a couple of effects to the background as well. So right now we have the subject, which is the peacock on top, and we have the background right here. So we can add gradients and lens flares and all that stuff. So let's go ahead and add them. To add a flare, create a gradient adjustment layer. Click on the adjustment layer icon and let's choose gradient. And let's single click here, and we will choose, let's say, choose any color, really doesn't matter. Make sure it's any color to transparent. So we will choose something like this, which is color to transparent, foreground to transparent, and we can change the color to whatever we like. So let's double click here to change the color of this one, and let's change it to yellowish. And on the right hand side, as it fades, we will choose, double click here to open up the color picker dialog box, and we will choose something like red. And you can change the color anytime. It really doesn't matter what color you choose in the beginning. So you can change the color at any moment. Now let's move it to the right and hit OK once you're satisfied. Now style, you can choose radial. Now you can move it wherever you like. You will have to move it later as well, and there is scale. Deal with it later. Hit OK. Now change the blend mode, because this is brightening stuff. Which is the blend mode which brightens stuff? screen, right? So change the blend mode to screen. Now this looks great. Now at this point, you might want to double click here on the symbol, and then you might want to move it to the top a little bit, and maybe you want to change the color to, let's change it to red. Let's go to H and change it more red, hit OK. I'm satisfied with this color, hit OK. And then we can play with the scale, something like that. That looks good. And then we can move it a little bit to the top or a little bit to the side. Totally depends upon your taste. Hit OK. And then you can decrease the opacity if you want to, just a bit. And this looks wonderful. Now let's do a little bit of dodging and burning to add dimension to the bird. Now what is dodging and burning? Well, dodging is brightening and burning is darkening. Dodging and burning is brightening and darkening particular areas of the image to add dimension to it. That's pretty much all there is. So if you see my face like this and there's a light coming in right from there, if you brighten that area, and this area faces away from the light, right? If I darken that area, what will happen is it will add dimension to my face. Let's zoom in and let's add dimension to this bird. So let's create curves adjustment layer on the top of the subject. So click on the adjustment layer icon and choose curves. And all we will do, we will take it up, and this is for dodging. Dodging is brightening, burning is darkening. Burning makes things darker, blackish, so that's how you can remember it. Let's increase it just a bit, just like that. And hold the Alt key or the Option key, click on the line between these two. That way, the brightness is just limited to the subject. Now you can increase it a little bit more. Now select the mask, press Ctrl or Command I. Adjustment layers come free with a mask. So let's zoom in and simply take a brush. And if you're using a tablet, then I would suggest that you would choose this brush. Soft Round Opacity and Flow. This is a great brush. And decrease the flow to 19% or something like that. If you're using a mouse, then I would suggest going lower with the flow. Now let's zoom in and let's brighten some areas up. Make the brush a little bigger and simply just start painting with white. Keep in mind, white shows up, black hides. You're simply brightening up the areas to make it stand out. All right. A little bit of backlighting, just like that. Let's zoom out and let's have a look at the before and after. So this is the after, this is the before, this is the after. We added a little bit of backlighting. Now if you want, you can increase the value right here, just like that. Okay, looks good. Now let's add some dimensions here as well. All right, this looks great. Now let's see if we can, I think it's too much. Let's decrease it a bit. And then let's add some brightness here as well. Looks good. Let's zoom out and have a look. So this is the before. This is the after. We added something extra to it. Zoom in and let's add some more, I guess, right here. And if you want to erase it, press X to change the color to black. And then you can erase the extras. All right. It looks pretty good. Now let's zoom into the beak. And maybe we'll brighten up the top a little bit with white. Maybe the eyes, just like that. Looks interesting. All right. Now let's have a look at it. Now you might not be able to look at it with zoomed out. So here is zoomed in before, after. Add some dimension to it. Now let's do a little bit of dodging and burning here as well. So let's make the brush a little bigger. And maybe we'll add something here. Probably here as well. Here, okay, maybe a little bit here. Okay, this all looks good. Let's zoom in here and do it here as well. We painted a little extra, press X and erase those extra areas. And let's fit it to screen. Okay, so we have done what? The dodging. Now we have to do burning. So this is dodging. Let's do the burning. For burning, we'll do just the opposite. Create a curves adjustment layer and now take it down just like that. Now hold the Alt or Option, click on the line between these two. Another way of creating a clipping mask or limiting that to the layer beneath it is just simply clicking on this button. This does exactly the same thing. So let's bring it down just like that and collapse it. Select the mask, press Ctrl or Command I, and then simply paint on the areas that you want to be dark or that is facing away from the light. Take the brush. Now just darken this area. Now you might think it just clicked, just dawned on me. Let's change the foreground color to white and just keep on painting. Now it just dawned on me that, as you can see, the background blurriness is like totally blurry and it has no noise, while the subject has a lot of noise. So how do we counter that? Well, there's a way to do it. First of all, let's add some darkness here and then I'll tell you how to do it. Okay, let's do it. So that's why we have it as a smart object, right? That's the advantage. We can go back to the blur gallery by double clicking here and let's go back to noise. And let's click on noise once this is all done. Now it takes time and all that stuff. It's updating. It's crazy. Now let's go to noise. Now while adding noise, you might have to zoom in really tight. So let's zoom in tight and we have to match the noise of the subject with that of the background. So it will update. Now let's add some noise. Let's increase the amount to this level. You can play with the amount and see what works for you. This is too much. This is okay. I think the size is perfect. Probably this is. Let's keep it at that way. Let's decrease the highlights, which means that it decreases the noise from the highlights. Highlights usually don't have noise and we're satisfied with it. Now hit OK. Now it will again take some time and for that all processing. Okay, now it looks even more realistic. Let's have a look. Yeah, it looks fine. It looks realistic. Okay, now let's resume back painting the blacks or the dark areas. Take the brush, foreground color white, and just simply paint on the area that you want to be dark. This is okay. Zoom out and we'll do a little bit of burning right here. Okay, before, after, adds much more dimension to it. So let's do a little bit of darkening here and there. Not much required, I guess, in this case. We can add some here as well. Okay, it looks great. And let's have a look at the before and after. So this is the before dodging and burning. After dodging and burning, adds a lot more dimension. Let's have a look at the complete before and after. So this is the before. Not interesting at all. This is the after. Interesting, isn't it? Now let's add a few more layers of dodging and burning and we'll do that in the background as well. So let's create a curves adjustment layer. This time as well, just simply take it up and we will create a clipping mask by clicking on this button. Click on the mask, press Ctrl or Command I. Now take the brush, make sure this time the brush is bigger and you can increase the flow if you want to 100%. And simply, I would suggest just dab on the bright areas. Alright, this looks not very interesting. It's too much, I guess. Let's go back and just dab once. Let's see what happens. And what I would suggest in this case, you go back to the soft round brush and then do it. It's kind of too much. Let's go back. Let's paint here. Let's paint a little bit there. It looks okay. Let's zoom out and let's do the same a little bit there. It's too much. A little bit here. Okay. Maybe a little bit there. Okay. This was just for a little bit of punch to it. Now for the background, let's create a curves adjustment layer and do not create clipping mask in this case. Let's take it down just like this. Okay. Collapse it. With the mask selected, Ctrl or Command I, let's zoom out and take the brush, make it a little larger. Interesting, right? Okay, looks great, looks interesting. Let's paint a little bit here, but I think it's too much. So we'll go back to the curves and just control it. Alright, there we go. Let's go back to the mask and let's erase it from here by pressing X. Black is the foreground now, and let's erase it from there. It looks interesting. Now we can add one more for brightness. Let's add curves, and maybe we'll add a little bit here, just like that, and Control or Command I, we'll add something right in here. Just paint that area with white, just like that. Okay, that looks a little interesting. Maybe a little more. Alright, looks interesting. Have a look. Here's the before, here's the after. Now, what to do now? To make the image more interesting, let's add some gradients and vignettes. So, click on the adjustment layer icon and choose gradient. And this time we can choose a gradient from black to white or something like that, and hit OK. And you can move the gradient while the gradient fill is open, just like this. Hit OK and change the blend mode to multiply. Okay, and that way you can open that back again and control it. Maybe I'll decrease the scale to something like this. 45 is okay, and just simply move it down. This adds kind of punch to the photo. Hit OK and have a look. Here's the before, here's the after. Add some punch. Maybe I'll just take it down a little more, just like that. Or just simply decrease it to 40 and then take it down. Okay, interesting. Now let's add some vignettes to it. Create a levels adjustment layer. Now once you have it, take this slider from the right to left. This slider darkens the bright areas, just like this. Okay, now you can also take this slider from left to right. It darkens the dark areas. Okay, collapse it, select the mask, and then take the brush. Make sure the foreground color is black. Press X to toggle between the foreground and the background, and make the brush harder, just like this. Increase the hardness and click once, just dab once on the subject. Then Control or Command T and adjust it the way you like it in the direction of light. Maybe like this. This is interesting. Now you would select the mask, open up the mask properties. If you cannot open up the properties that way by double clicking here either opens the selected mask or the mask properties. You might have to do that settings in the preferences, but if you don't see this, by just simply selecting this, you can go to Windows and then make sure properties is checked, and then you can click here to open up the mask properties. Simply increase the feather here. I'll go with 450. Just collapse it, and guess what? You can move it with the move tool. You can move it the way you like it. Isn't that interesting? Or you can simply do it through the levels properties. So double click here and just control it from there, just like that. I'll keep it at that. This looks okay to me. Maybe I'll increase it. Let's close it. Maybe I will move it a bit, just like that, and let's decrease the opacity. You can choose not to, but that's totally upon you. Let's see. Let's come back to this one and decrease the opacity of that one as well, just like that. And it looks very, very interesting. What you can also do, you can also transform the mask if you would like to. Let's come to the levels, Control or Command T, and you can also transform it and add some darkness to the left hand side as well. So maybe something like this would be interesting to you. Now let's add some global effects. Let's add an overall contrast. So click on the adjustment layer icon and select curves. So in curves, you can use the hand tool to really control where you increase the contrast. Select the hand tool, and we want to brighten this area. Click and drag it up, just like that. Okay, a little bit. Interesting. And you want to darken this particular area, click and drag it down. I think we will have to drag it down a bit, drag this down a bit more, control it a little bit better, and zoom out and have a look. Looks interesting. So here's the before, here's the after. I think we don't want to make it so dark. This is okay, but let's make it a little brighter. Okay. At this point, what you might also want to do, let's make it very subtle. Let's create a stamp visible layer by pressing the button Command, Option, Shift, and E. Control, Alt, Shift, and E on a Windows. Okay. Now, you can convert this into a smart object if you would like to, but I'm going to keep it at that because it usually makes it slower. So go to Filter, and then probably let's go to Camera Raw filter, and let's make it a little warmer by increasing it here from here And if you want, you can probably play with these values like shadows and all that stuff, blacks. And at this moment, you can go crazy. Don't worry about the highlights. Don't worry about the shadows, losing details. Now it's all about art. You can increase the contrast from here, make it more interesting. And then you can increase the vibrance if you would like to. Play with dehaze. Let's see what it does. It makes it more interesting. Now, you can also go to the effects panel, and then you can add a post-crop vignette on top of it. Let's take it to the left just a little bit, okay? And you can control the midpoint. If you take it all the way to the left, you'll be able to see the midpoint. So this is okay. Now, let's control the intensity. It looks interesting. Also, you can take this opportunity of Camera Raw to add some sharpness or remove noise if you'd like to. But I don't want to remove noise, because if I do, it will become smooth. So let's go to this section, the detail section, and you can increase the sharpness if you'd like to. So I'll increase it a bit, and then let's control the radius by holding the Option key or the Alt key, and keep on increasing it to the point where you begin to see the halo effects. So take it all the way to the left and slowly and gradually increase it. At this point we see halo. I don't like that. So for me, 1.1 is fine. And details, also you can hold the Option key or the Alt key. If you increase too much, you'll see a lot of noise. So details, be careful about details. But we don't have to worry about noise because we added noise in the background to make it look more natural. It is okay. Zoom out and have a look. In this image, we have added noise as an effect. So don't worry about noise as of now. But if you want to remove noise, you can use the noise reduction right from here. But I don't want to do that. You can also do it, try to do it, see what it does, and control the luminance details and all that stuff to reduce the noise. See how nicely it has reduced the noise. You can also increase it way more and totally decrease the noise, just like this. But to me, you might like this, but I don't really like this. I'll just decrease it all the way to 0. To me, it's fine. Hit enter, and that is fine for me. Hit OK. I just hit enter or return. It's the same thing. And there you go. Let's have a look at the before and after. So this is the after. Let's turn the background to black. This is the after. And let me show you the before. It's going to be a huge difference. So this is the before. This is the after. Plus, this is not even the before. This is after applying Camera Raw. So here's the final result. This is the before and this is the after. Isn't that a drastic difference? So that's how to blur the background, add the bokeh, edit the photo, make some color adjustments, make the image look more interesting, edit the wildlife photo from start to finish, and here we have the final result. Just a quick little recap. So first of all, as you import the photo into Photoshop, if it's a raw photo, it will open up in Adobe Camera Raw. If it's not a raw photo, if it's a JPEG image, it might not do that. So if you want to enable Adobe Camera Raw for JPEG images as well, make the changes in the preferences as discussed in the video. Now, once we are in Adobe Camera Raw, we will make the basic adjustments, but where the Adobe Camera Raw really shines is in the HSL department, especially for this case. We edited the hue, saturation, and lightness of each and every color individually. We knew that blue was the more prominent color, so we brightened that up, decreased the saturation a little bit because it was too saturated, controlled the greens and all that colors, especially in this image in the HSL department. That was very crucial. Now, once you have done all those adjustments in Adobe Camera Raw, including the local adjustments by using adjustment brushes, hit OK, open that up inside of Photoshop. Now, inside of Photoshop, you can just look at the photo, wonder, what can I do to this photo to make it more interesting? And the first thing that came to our mind that the background was a little distracting. So we blurred the background. We made a selection of the peacock, okay? Created a mask. We had the background beneath it. We converted that into a smart object, blurred it, added the bokeh effect, added some noise to make it match with that of the subject. And after that, we did some dodging and burning to add some dimension to it. Then we added some flares, lights effects, color effects, and to draw the attention of the viewer towards the peacock, we added vignette effects. We added some gradients from the bottom, we created those vignettes, and to top it off at the end, to apply the final effect finishing touch, we created a stamp visible layer and applied Camera Raw on it again, made it warmer, added more contrast, added an extra vignette, and here we have the final result. So that's pretty much it for this video. Hope this video helped you, and if it did, make sure to give us a like, and also don't forget to subscribe, and not just subscribe, ring the bell so that you don't miss any other future tip, trick, or tutorial. I would like to take this moment to thank all these nice and amazing people for supporting this channel on Patreon and helping keep PiXimperfect free for everybody forever. Thank you so much for all your support. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys in my next one. Till then, stay tuned and make sure that you keep creating.